Full shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's some social shit for everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, I made this be myself, so hear me. Woo! I mean, like, we can put all that clown shit away. This some real shit for you. I'm spazzing right now, so listen, let's go. Yeah. It's in their bones, the thugs in harmony for the love of the money. Then fall victim for the cookie, then turn pussy, it's lonely. You said you hold it down when life get rough, we're here now, so show me. We move them losses to them wins. Heavy pounds, we make it ends meet. Converse with only few who make me feel like I be 10 feet.
Welcome back to the channel, people. Hope you are all doing blessed. So today we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 centre backs in world football right now. Guys, make sure you guys head on over after this video and watch the top 10 strikers in world football right now. Really good video, really good conversation, so make sure you guys of course check that out. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So in at number 10 we have got Ronald Araujo of Barcelona. He can also play in at right back. I think with Araujo, he is a top defender. He can also of course play right back, and I think with his versatility, his strengths, you know, on and off the ball, his running power, you know, he has got that pace to be able to, you know, get back, so that recovery pace. And I think when we're looking at someone like him, he has a knack of being able to go up against some of the biggest and best and strongest forwards and still come out on top. I don't know if it's just that South American flair, to be honest with you. It could just be that, but when I watch him play, I think to myself, you know, for a player, especially when you're at Barcelona, you know, with of course their kind of natural DNA, you know, and the way that they play, when you're looking at someone like Araujo, and especially just any defender who plays at the back, you know, I could have put in Kubasi as well, who was an honourable mention to, you know, miss out. And I think when I look at him, I think he was quite pivotal, you know, during the season in which Barcelona won La Liga. And I think looking at him now, he really has grown. I know he's had his injury problems and things like that, which is absolutely fair, but I feel that, you know, he has fully grown into being one of the best defenders, you know, out there in world football. So in at number 9, we have got Marquinhos, the Brazilian centre back. I think Marquinhos, he's only 30 years of age, but I promise you now, you probably wouldn't even know it, to be honest with you, that he plays, the way that he commands, you know, his area, the kind of, you know, leadership qualities that, you know, he does show, and he has shown really and truly for a very long period of time. He's played in defensive midfield before, you know, as well under Tuchel. And I think when I look at someone like Marquinhos, yes, you know, he's got the odd mistake and stuff like that in there, you know, in his game. And I think that's something that's kind of really crept in, you know, over the last kind of few seasons, you know, for PSG. But overall, you know, this is a really top quality, you know, player. I mean, as I mentioned, he's been there over a decade, you know, playing with, you know, the likes of Thiago Silva, you know, whether it's for Brazil, whether it's for, you know, for PSG. And I think now, you know, playing alongside Pacho, you know, he's got Beraldo there as well. You know, you can see he's really taking up that kind of mantle of being, you know, the experienced one, you know, the one who understands what it means to actually be a defender. And I think when I watch him play, he's definitely still one of the better defenders, you know, out there in world football, in my personal opinion. In at number 8, we have Nathan Ake of Manchester City. And yes, before anybody tries to remind me, I know he's been injured, you know, this season. And to be honest, throughout his kind of City/Premier League career, he has actually had quite a bit of injuries. But I'll be honest with you, that doesn't even take away from the actual ability of Nathan Ake. And I do believe that with the fact that he's been injured so much this season, that has actually played quite a pivotal part for the reasons as to why Manchester City have been doing so poorly, especially in defence, you know, alongside a couple of the other players who are, you know, not normally, you know, this injury prone. But I look at Nathan Ake and I think a guy who can play left back, he can play left-sided centre back in a back three, you know, he can play wing back if you needed him to. He's strong. He did have he had a decent amount of pace, but it wasn't really about his pace with his defending, from what I could kind of tell. He always seemed like he was someone who could read the game really well, and I think that always helped him in certain situations, positioning, awareness and things like that. He's also very decent on the ball as well, and of course you kind of have to be, you know, in a Pep Guardiola system. And I think as much as, yes, he is injured now, and that might, of course, play a part as to why he's probably further down the list than he probably should be higher. But unfortunately, because of those injuries, I've had to put him, here. But if I'm being honest with you, he is still, seen in my eyes as, one of the better defenders out there. Number 7, I've gone for Ruben Diaz. And now this one, this one was kind of interesting, if I'm being honest, trying to place him, because if I'm being honest, on his day, I believe he's a top 3 defender out there in world football. I think he's better than some of the names that we're going to come up to, after this. But I just feel like he had that one season that he obviously came into Manchester City when he signed for them. That season, I thought he was obviously fantastic. Of course, I know Virgil van Dijk was injured, but to me, he was the best centre-back in the world that season. I would probably say since then, I just feel like there's been a little bit of a drop-off in his quality, but he then has these moments or these kind of, periods or purple patch where you start to think, you know what, he is still, listen, being in this position doesn't mean he's awful or anything like that. We're talking about hundreds of players and, trying to pick 10. But when I look at him sometimes, I'm like, you are a top defender, but you, for some reason, in the last couple of seasons, in my opinion, you just haven't really shown it consistently enough to almost warrant keeping you in like a top 3, of the world kind of thing, behind, the likes of, Virgil van Dijk, for example. So yeah, I've put him down in 7th, but that's really just because of the last couple of seasons. I do think that there are other players who, have kind of taken that mantle. And me, guys, I always have like a 2 to 3 year period of how I would kind of rate you, if we're talking about world's best and things like that. And I just think that in the last 2 years, I think there are other players who have overtaken him, not by much. It's not a crazy gap between him and the rest of them, bar maybe number 1, but I just think that as of right now, 7th for me is a good position for Ruben Diaz. So at number 6, I have gone for Konaté. Now, I know Liverpool fans will start looking at this and thinking, oh my goodness, how can he be so low, and etc. I think with Konaté, right, one, it's his availability. It's obviously been a bit better, of course, this season, but that played a part. But even that wasn't really too much of a hindrance, so to speak. I just think that with someone like Konaté, I do look at him, unfortunately, in today's game and feel that he is quite limited as a centre-back. Now, that's just the negative side of things with Konaté. What I will say is, though, he, alongside, I would say, probably Virgil van Dijk in world football that I can think of, on their day, you are not getting past them. On their day, like there is no getting past, like at all whatsoever. He is a brick wall and you are not getting past him. He is quicker than most strikers in football as well, which obviously gives him, that advantage. So yeah, it was difficult. Like I say, from Ruben Diaz up till, I'll probably say maybe number 4, I felt like they're all kind of in the same bracket of defenders. So really, you could just chop them up and put them into any position that you wanted. But yeah, with Konaté, I think it's just more about, one, availability, but also having that kind of bozo gene, as I like to call it. I feel like with him, it does come out a bit too consistently for me to call you anywhere like a top 3 defender. I don't feel like any of the top 3 defenders have a bozo gene in them, kind of thing. So when they do make mistakes and things like that, it is genuinely a shock. Whereas with Konaté, it isn't really a shock when he makes that kind of typical mistake. And I just think for you to be a top 3 defender, I can't say that about you as an individual. But of course, like I said, on his day, this guy is an absolute beast. So coming in at number 5 and 4, I couldn't really differentiate between the two. I genuinely believe that they're both on the exact same kind of level. So I'll let you, the viewers, decide on where you would like to place them. And that's obviously Gabriel and Saliba. I do think that these guys are really, really good centre-backs. And they are very, very close right now to being on the cusp of, I would say, world-class centre-backs. I still think that they are just a little bit underneath. And if you do put them in there, they're really at the bottom of that list. So I don't know if you'd rather be at the bottom of the world-class list or top of the top-class list as an example. But again, you guys can kind of decide that. And also as well, again, I don't think that they're that much better than 𝐾𝐃, if I'm being totally honest with you. Again, they just like 𝐾𝐃, they also have those, you know, that kind of bozo gene within them in terms of the way that they play. But listen, these two complement each other so well. And you know, with Saliba being so young, you know, I feel like he might potentially be the one out of the three between him, Gabriel, and 𝐾𝐃 who has the bigger prospect, if I'm being totally honest with you. Because, you know, being about 23, I think he is now, and he's already on the level of these kind of guys, and he's been performing in the Premier League and things like that. I think when I look at it, I'm like, wow, in the next, you know, 10 years, for example, this guy's only going to get better and better and better. And that's obviously only a good thing, you know, for Arsenal. But when we're talking about, you know, Gabriel as well, again, in the last 2 seasons, in my opinion, I think he's been better, you know, than William Saliba. And I think it's the leadership qualities, it's the commanding of his area, sometimes it's even just the way that he speaks with his teammates, you know, the way he rallies his teammates, he rallies the fans and things like that. Obviously Saliba's the more calmer one, you know, of the two, from what I can see anyway. He's the one who kind of chills, you know, he's a bit like Van Dijk, you know, they play the game at their own pace, and to be honest, he's got quite a bit of it, you know, he doesn't really like to get too embroiled in things, but at the same time, you know, he's someone who, when he needs to, you know, get down and dirty, you know, then he can actually do that. And I think both of them, like I said, I could not really choose between the two. I think you could put them in any order, even 𝐾𝐃, if you want to throw him in there. Between 𝐾𝐃, Saliba and Gabriel, listen, pick whatever order you want. But for me, yeah, I've got these two in at the same place. So I've got them in at 5 and 4, but you guys can pick. So now we get to the top 3, and in at number 3 we have got a defender who I think is very, very, very close to being probably the best centre-back in world football, but I think he's just waiting for the other 2 guys ahead of him on this list to retire, and that is Alessandro Bastoni. He is one of the best. Absolutely love watching him play for Inter Milan, love watching him play for Italy. He is the modern centre back. He can play out from the back, he can go into midfield, he can play wing back, he can play centre back, in a back 3, in a back 4, in a back 5. He can use his right foot. He's left footed but can also play on the right side, which makes him even more unique than anything else. I mean, what more do you want from your centre back, to be honest with you? And if it's not just that, it's just the sheer fact that he's actually a fantastic defender. He reads the game so well. He's got a very good passing range. He's got an understanding and an awareness of what he needs to do and where he needs to be, you know, on the pitch. His 1v1 battles really good, aerial duels really good. He is just an absolute dream of a centre back, especially in today's day and age when they really want your centre backs to, you know, to be people who are comfortable in and out of possession. He is definitely that, you know. And I think, like I said before, the only thing that probably stops him, in my opinion, from being called the out and out number 1 centre back is just purely the fact that he's got 2 guys who are still playing and who are still doing their thing, you know, into their 30s. But you wait, I think, give it maybe a couple of seasons, you know, once these guys' powers start to wane a little bit, he will be, for me, the number 1 centre back. And I think every single club in the world would want to sign someone like Bastoni. You know, if this was a list about, you know, the world's craziest players right now in world football, I think he'd probably be number 1. But listen, Antonio Rudiger is, I don't know how to describe it. I would love to know what this guy is like, you know, in the dressing room, you know, on the training ground and stuff like that, because he just looks like he is just fun personified. You know, it doesn't seem like he, listen, I'm not saying, of course, he's an absolute professional, and he's taken, since he left Chelsea, his game has just gone from strength to strength to strength. And when I look at someone like Rudiger, you know, he is just, he's just an amazing, you know, centre back. Like, I don't really know how else to really describe it. You know, if you want to go, you know, machine for machine, you know, as Curtis Jones would say, he can do that very, very easily. If you think you can run in behind him, even at his age, yeah, I don't know about all of that. I think he will I think he can definitely hang with some of the quickest players in world football. I mean, he's 32 years, you know, of age, and it's crazy because I didn't really see this, you know, at Stuttgart, you know, at Roma, even at Chelsea when he left. I didn't look at him and think, yeah, this guy will become like the second best centre back, you know, in the world, but he's easily become that. And I do think, listen, as I said before, number 3, you know, I think Bastoni is fantastic and he is a world-class centre back, but you know, this guy is, I think, you know, almost, I think like a level above that, you know, just in terms of his aura in defending, you know, in itself. You know, you really don't want to come up against centre backs like Rudiger because he loves it. He absolutely loves the kind of hustle and bustle that he's going to have to face, you know, with strikers. And I think that's probably what makes him who he is. And, you know, he just seems like he's just a fun individual. But listen, I don't want to take away from his actual game, you know, being someone who can read the game really well, being someone who understands where he needs to be, you know, his awareness. I wouldn't say he's the most comfortable in possession, but I think he more than makes up for that, you know, in his actual defending, you know, in defensive situations. And that's probably why I've got him in at number 2. Listen, I think number 1 is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I spoke about aura with Rudiger. This guy is the definition of aura. I mean, you've got old school centre backs, you know, centre backs of yesteryear who talk about this guy and they talk about, you know, they would have loved to have played, you know, all the top centre backs of, you know, of yesteryear would have loved to have played with, you know, Virgil van Dijk. And to be honest, for good reason. I mean, just look at him. You know what I mean? Just look at him. I don't feel like there's much I need to say on Virgil van Dijk, to be honest with you. I don't feel like there's anything I can really add to what we already know about Virgil van Dijk as to why he is the best centre-back in the world. I generally just believe it's just aura based at this point now, you know, in terms of his defending. I mean, the guy got injured, you know, and was out for a significant period of time, basically the entirety of like the season, more or less. Came back, still one of the best, and then he ended up just becoming, in this last, I would say, 2 seasons, he's just kind of gone up from there back to the, I wouldn't say back to the level, I just think he's just gone back up to being the best centre-back, whereas others maybe had put, maybe like a Rudiger could have potentially been seen as one, or if you looked at Ruben Diaz, some people said, and, you know, Saliba, everyone was trying to throw in. Yeah, I think everybody gets compared with this guy, and when you have to compare everybody with one player, it's usually because that player is probably the best. So that's why everyone's got to be compared to him, and I think he really is that. You know, he'll go down as obviously he's going to go down as a legend of Liverpool. He'll go down a legend of the Premier League, a legend of football. And I think a lot of centre-backs coming through now, he is the guy that they look to, because they just think, if I can reach even like 70% of his kind of ability, whew, Lord have mercy, man. I think I'm going to have an absolutely fantastic, you know, career. This is a guy who almost came close to winning the Ballon d'Or, you know, in front of Lionel Messi. Yeah, I don't think many centre-backs now, if any, in fact, I don't think any centre-back in the last 10 years, you know, would actually warrant that kind of praise. So, yeah, big up to Virgil van Dijk, and he is the number 1 centre-back in football right now. But there you guys have it, man. That is my top 10 centre-backs in world football right now. As I say, guys, let me know in the comment section as to who your top 10 centre-backs are in football right now. Do you agree with my list? Do you hate my list? Just let me know your thoughts in the comment section, people, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.